This isn't funny. Okay, stop. I'm serious. Stop copying me. Stop pretending like you know everything.
Okay, I'm gonna go.
Wait, what?
Welcome to In Frame Out's Year in Film, where we take stock of 12 months of spectacular cinema and unfortunate rubbish. Despite cinema closures, pushed back release dates and film productions grinding to a halt, I still somehow managed to catch over 130 new releases during the last 12 months. After narrowing those down to our 10 best and worst films of 2020, there were still so many fantastic features and fumbling failures that narrowly missed the mark. So here are In Frame Out's honourable and dishonourable mentions of 2020. Honourable mentions. Leigh Whannell transforms H.G. Wells' eponymous and unseeable figure into a ghastly spectral allegory in this refreshing take on the unseen. With empathy and immediacy, the Invisible Man charts a woman on the verge of a nervous breakdown, and the Phantom pushing her towards the edge. Negative space and uneasy silence are wielded like razor wire as Elizabeth Moss twists through unending psychic torment. While her abusive spouse gaslights and manipulates the world to fit his controlling ends, Moss's fearlessness sells every shivering moment of uncertainty and table-turning, empowering escalation. It gets a touch silly when it steps out of the shadows to play its final hand, with a few plot contrivances stretching my suspension of disbelief to breaking point, but never enough to derail what's ultimately one of 2020's most tense, timely thrillers.
There's a bomb in the cake. Don't worry. I used to be a bomb guy. Everyone stand back!
Oh my god!
A sun-kissed, bittersweet, and incredibly charming take on the Groundhog Day time loop formula, Palm Springs is just the kind of carefree comedy gold the world needed during the lockdown doldrums of these past summer months. Andy Samberg and Kristen Milioti absolutely spark with an effervescent chemistry as they go through the unending motions of a day on repeat. And J.K. Simmons is so good as a scene-stealing supporting player at this point, there's a real case to be made for just putting him in every single film. With humour, depth and pathos, Palm Springs is a delightfully eccentric, high-concept winner. With firebrand conviction and a no-holds-barred rebellious streak, this weird western takes aim at colonialism, hegemony and poverty tourism. Part scathing geopolitical commentary, part rallying cry for small community activism, this Brazilian genre bender never lets a strong message get in the way of subversive abandon. As the body count rises and tensions reach a boil, the final act of Bacurau erupts into violent, righteous carnage that's as savage as it is cathartic. Don't sleep on this wildly original gem. This 3-hour exhibition of atrocities carried out during the Second World War is an important, unflinching piece of art. It's also nearly impossible to recommend, as The Painted Bird stands battered and abused as one of the toughest, most unrelentingly upsetting films I've ever endured, which is precisely the point. In the same vein as Come and See or Son of Saul, it operates under the ethos that to dampen or shy away from any of the suffering would ultimately be disrespectful to all concerned. A numbing, unspeakably horrid collage of the cruelest acts of brutality you can imagine, as seen and experienced by a child no less, there is no lightness to be found in this acrid dark. The Painted Bird is a vital, necessary body of work, but one you should be extremely careful to undertake.
Mum, what are you doing, Mum? Stop it! Mum!
Deliberate, melancholy, and unshakably sad, Relic is a terrifying meditation on the effects of aging and chronic disease. Told from the distorted perspectives of 3 generations of women, mental deterioration becomes the monstrous apparition lurking in wait. It's an uncomfortable but always empathetic take on sickness, acceptance, and the incessant struggle to keep hold of what makes us who we are. This overwhelming feature debut from writer-director Natalie Erica James is one of the year's most sparsely staged, consistently creepy dramatic horrors.
I was going to say, what else
I pride myself on not having become an alcoholic until after I was already a failure.
Okay.
Because alcoholic failures are boring.
That's actually...
and I ruined my life sober, and then I came to you.
Hard to categorise as a documentary, mockumentary, or cinema verite-infused reality experiment, Bloody Nose Empty Pockets places a dozen or so real-life booze hounds in a fictional Las Vegas dive bar on its closing day of business. Miraculously, given its enigmatic, semi-constructed staging, there's never any question about the authenticity of these beer-soaked, blurry-eyed exchanges. Every slurred word of inspiring, inebriated philosophy fights for attention against a blaring jukebox and the cacophonous roar of bumbling drunks. By the last call, you'll feel like a barfly on the wall, begging for one more round. Hunter, a porcelain doll of marital bliss, develops a dangerous compulsion to swallow inanimate objects. Thus begins a journey of self-realization and bodily autonomy, where each indigestible marble and thumbtack is a small assertion of individuality. Swallow reaches down the throat of seemingly blissful domesticity to reveal the cold, unpalatable anguish of a woman trapped in a passionless, purgatorial marriage. And it does so without ever coming across as unnecessarily gimmicky. If you can stomach the subject matter, Swallow is a fresh feminist work you'll be chewing over for days.
You guys want to watch a different movie?
From its opening minutes, you'd be forgiven for dismissing this as blatant hereditary worship, what with its dollhouses, familial anguish, and emotionally distant children. It's only after the year's most abrupt and unsettling shock that The Lodge finds its footing as a familiar yet undeniably effective exercise in tension and disorienting uncertainty. Riley Keough slowly unwinds from reserved to something else, proving that after a number of standout supporting turns, she's more than capable of taking the lead. Weather-beaten and surprising up to its bitter end, The Lodge is an underappreciated, ice-cold chiller.
I don't know what the fuck happened. 40, 50 years just disappeared in there somehow. All of a sudden there's no time left.
Innovation and originality aren't prerequisites for crafting a singularly affecting, moving piece of work, as proven by the immensely rewarding Driveways. An emotionally acute study of grief and companionship, its fleeting runtime and limited scope allow director Andrew Ahn to hone in on the mundane realities of loneliness between the elderly, an adult, and a child. Hong Chow continues to impress after her mesmerising turn in 2019's Watchmen, but this really belongs to the late, great Brian Dennehy in his poignant Curtain Call, where he goes out on arguably the greatest performance of his career.
Look, frankly, it's your call. I can file a complaint for you if that's what you want, but I think you know how it would come off.
A glacial low hum of distress permeates a day in the life of an idealistically crushed Hollywood staffer. Trying to exist in an environment where the powerful conduct campaigns of misconduct with impunity, Julia Garner's Jane radiates empathy and muted anxiety as she's mansplained, verbally abused, and pushed to the point of fracture. Forced to weigh her own ambitions against an untenable climate of transparent misogyny, the understated presentation here lets Garner's performance silently scream with every pang of disillusion. Sure to be this year's entry in the indie dramas are boring and nothing happens debate, The Assistant is a never more essential character study, just so long as you've got the patience to appreciate it. dishonourable mentions.
We keep our heads down and our mouths shut. Do you understand me?
I went into Antebellum completely blind and found it to be well acted and occasionally effective, but lacking the follow-through or invention to elevate its premise. The trailer for Antebellum, on the other hand, it spoils every twist, turn, and narrative trick this film has up its sleeve. If you've seen any of the teasers, you've already been robbed of the film's biggest rug pull that carried me through the rest of the runtime and its more glaring flaws.
As I understand it, we're trying to prevent World War III.
I'm not saying Armageddon here.
No. Something worse.
Nobody can accuse Christopher Nolan's worst studio film of lacking ambition, but time-juggling, globe-trotting logistics aside, Tenet is hollow, devoid of heart, and infuriatingly superficial. Mistaking convoluted for intelligent, the turning cogs of its mechanical frame grind, jam, and eventually stall, with an indecipherably edited climactic battle. These narrative missteps aren't even in the service of well-defined characters, or coherent set pieces to keep things ticking. The villain's plan is nonsensical, the sound design is inexcusably poor, and the dialogue is mumbled dreck. But I guess it's nice that Nolan still likes his vistas wide, effects practical, and human beings secondary. This origin story for an already cancelled cinematic universe fails to make good on what should have been a cakewalk. Create tension by shrinking the superheroics of the X-Men series down to a single location, heightening the perilous emotional stakes with the unpredictability of hormonal teenagers and sinister overseers. For a release so plagued with delays, reshoots, and editorial drama, the problems here aren't as simple as studio-mandated compromises or conflicting creative visions. These archetypes are so flat they threaten to slide between the numerous cracks in the plot, and all attempts to simulate depth based on racial tensions and sexual abuse come off as tokenistic and tasteless, neither of which can be blamed on a behind-the-scenes business merger. Redundant years before it was even released, The New Mutants is another low in an increasingly lopsided series.
You haven't seen it? Oh, Chad. You are gonna flip your shit. You better clear your schedule because this is required viewing.
This incredibly cheap and admittedly cheerful horror anthology is clearly made with the love and affections of filmmakers attempting to honour their influences, which is a damn shame because almost none of this works. Outside of a wonderful chapter that blends serial killers, slime monsters, and self-aware silliness, most of these threadbare tales struggle to meet even the lowest of expectations. Returning to the well of meta-commentary so often it runs dry long before the halfway point, it's an eye-rolling reminder that knowing and referencing tropes isn't inherently funny or insightful unto itself.
I had to find a new identity. A new me.
Bettering the septic tank sandwich that was Suicide Squad is hardly difficult, but fair play, Harley Quinn's solo cinematic foray is a vast improvement in every regard, but I still really didn't like it. The humour is cloying, baby-faced drivel that's far more irritating than amusing. Like being misquoted Deadpool deleted scenes by a manic Twitch streaming sociopath, every irksome barrage of babbling non-sequiturs does more to enrage than engage. Margot Robbie is as committed as ever, and Mary Elizabeth Winstead is brilliant, but to what end? An admirably feminist take on the material, delivered with the care of an ecstasy overdose. With the twee-affected quirk and aren't we hardcore attitude of a teenager swearing at the dinner table, this is about as tonally consistent as a glitter bomb in a butcher shop. I was really rooting for this one, but it mostly just left me annoyed. The Wretched is a bland, banal gruel that's ultimately pointless to pick apart. Every beat in its vast nothingness has been done with more panache and consideration elsewhere, regardless of whether or not you like things on the louder or quieter end of the witchy barometer. In fact, it's so forgettable, I started watching it a second time a month later because I honestly couldn't remember having sat through it. As trite and by the numbers as this sort of hocus pocus gets.
Those jackals out there, they want your ass on a chopping block. Is there anything else odd or quirky or fucking weird that I'm gonna discover today?
Yeah, kinda.
Due to curious coincidence and in no small part down to director Clint Eastwood's political allegiances, Richard Jewell wound up representing many of the ideological divides between the left and right in modern America. However, simply being timely isn't a get-out-of-jail-free card for the kind of myth-making tripe this biopic is shoveling. In Eastwood's divided states, all news is fake, all investigations are bogus, and all sexism is justified. The film goes to great lengths to weave a web of lies about the now tragically deceased journalist Kathy Scruggs, and it's inexcusable regardless of dramatic license. This doesn't so much honour a member of the demonised and falsely accused working class, rather it uses workman-like filmmaking to fan the flames of discontent using heavily redacted Oscar bait biopic conventions that make this tiring, tin-eared trash.
I'll give you every cent that I've got. I'm in finance.
Jessica Chastain stars as a spy and assassin caught in a network of frail allegiances, nefarious villains, double crosses, and faltering personal relationships. And if you're thinking, hey, isn't that a whole lot like the generic woman assassin template found in Atomic Blonde, Red Sparrow, Alias, La Femme Nikita, Anna, The Rhythm Section, The Long Kiss Goodnight, Haywire, Columbiana, The Villainess, Proud Mary, and many, many other similar action thrillers? The answer is no, because this is worse than all of those. It's a testament to how reliable Chastain is that she elevates this bafflingly generic dirge even slightly, but nobody could make Ava's unabashed lack of ambition engaging. Without any stylistic flourishes or subversions to this most overplayed of paid killer plots, I can't think of a single reason this needs to exist or why anyone should watch it. A quick glance at the Dark and the Wicked's critical consensus may give the impression that there's something special about this haunted farmhouse, and I guess I forgot to drink the Kool-Aid on this one, because to me it felt like a tepid, trying vacuum. More of a no burn than a slow burn, nothing happens out with long, silent stretches of emptiness, followed by a loud sting of sound, or a fleeting glimpse of a silhouetted figure mulling around in the background. And without any characterization, mythology, or motive, the only sense of danger here comes from the very real threat of being bored to death.
Don't hate the player. Hate the game. Oh, it is perfectly acceptable to hate the player when the player is being a total dick.
Once I was done rolling my eyes at its craptastic name, I should have shut it off, read a book, or listened to any of these amazing records that came out this year. Instead, I took a chance on Triggered, a not even half-baked concept masquerading as a feature-length horror. Prepare for an unlikable group of self-interested idiots strapped into suicide vests and forced to off one another in the South African wilderness whilst butchering American accents in an attempt to pass this off as a US release. Or, how's about this for a plan? Listen to the Phoebe Bridgers record, get caught up with Succession, just do anything else. Those were our honourable and dishonourable mentions of 2020. Tune in next time for entries 10 through 6 of our best films of the year. A shout out to our Patreon producers Jennifer C, Claire MD, Becky O, and Nicholas Lair-Revere, and all the love in the world for these amazing folks who support us over on Patreon. Why not let us know your favourite and least favourite films of the year down in the comments, and we'll see how many of you can guess the final In Frame Out rundown. Make sure you subscribed, like, hit the bell, all that blah blah blah, and if you're in a position to do so, we'd love it if you checked out our Patreon, where for as little as $1 a month you can get your name in the credits, additional content, access to our private Discord, and a membership to the In Frame Out Film Club. As always, thank you for watching. Until next time, this is In Frame Out.